Okay, so let's begin. I want to welcome everybody to Cité, two cities, two mayors, one goal. This is a co-production between Via San Francisco and California Humanities, and it's part of the Oakland Saint-Denis cooperation project. And this is one in a series of public virtual discussions about how the arts, humanities, and communities can help cities to evolve and thrive. Before we get into the discussion between our two honorable mayors, who I'll introduce in a moment, I do want to bring up Frédéric Jung, who is the Consul General for France and San Francisco. And again, just to remind you, a bit of housekeeping, there is a translation feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And if you just mouse over it, you'll be able to choose either simultaneous translation for English or French. So thank you to our translators who are going to provide that service. So please choose your option. Frédéric, welcome.
Thank you. Un petit message technique également pour le public.
Just a technical message here for the French-speaking audience. At the bottom of your screen, you have an interpretation feature where you're going to be able to choose the language that you would like to listen to during French or English, as you wish.
Bonjour à tous, welcome. Welcome to Cité, two cities, two mayors, one goal. I'm Frédéric Jung, I'm the Consul General of France in San Francisco. I'm very honored to introduce this discussion between Mayor Libby Schaaf, Mayor of Oakland since 2015, and Mathieu Hanotin, Mayor of Saint-Denis since July 2020. Thank you both for participating in this very exciting dialogue. And thank you, of course, to the audience for being online with us. Allow me to finally thank also California Humanities, Villa San Francisco, and the French-American Cultural Society for having made this event possible. Since we have translation and since we have part of the audience who is French, allow me to switch to French. Cette discussion entre les deux maires.
This debate between both of the mayors is part of the Oakland Saint-Denis cooperation that started. It's a dialogue between two cities. We never really thought about bringing together these two cities before, but these cities have so much in common that we're looking at even closer. Our objective of this project is to learn from each other and the challenges that we have, our current day city and the future of our cities, and we are especially focusing on art and culture in inclusive cities so that we all work and build this together. This Oakland Saint-Denis project has led to two different missions, one in Saint-Denis, another one in Oakland, with different multidisciplinary members, scientists, and journalists. And this led to a documentary movie. So Saint-Denis and Oakland are on the outskirts. They are close to a large city, Paris on the one hand, and San Francisco on the other. Paris and San Francisco are large cities. And when we look at this closer, Saint-Denis and Oakland are cities with very strong identities and personalities. And they are cities for the future, completely changing, evolving for the future and future years to come. Since we built this initiation of this project, there's a lot of wonderful replies to this. And we all know what is happening in France and in the United States, the virus. This virus is a huge challenge for our government, even at the community level and at the very concrete and physical level. And we need to find solutions to this. Saint-Denis and Oakland are both in the first lines to grapple with this scourge. We also want to define our different equalities, and also especially in terms of Black Lives Matters, which is all part of this. In France, we have a new idea. It's separatism. And since it has evolved, we have been focusing on safety and security. All of these ideas and all of these concepts, it means that we need to boost our ability to live together. Another French mayor had this very important formula that a challenge in and of itself, with a mayorship, you need to be able to grapple with the challenges so your inhabitants, regardless of their origin, so they can really truly live together, linked connected and not sides. And once you live next to each other, you live right in front of each other as well together. So this is going to be the object of our conversation, and there are the mayors of these two counties are going to be talking. Please allow me to say, as a diplomat, to focus on one final point here, and I'm talking about words and their meaning and how they are translated. Where we're talking about city or cité, what are we talking about? Is it a city, like city in English, cité, or are we talking about the most recent one, which is on the outskirts, a city on the outskirts? And are we talking about community, like a local community in the heart of Saint-Denis, or are we going to be talking about cultural communities or interracial communities? And this is very important in France, that this whole concept has arisen. And for example, communities in the United States is at the very core, the concept of community in the United States. What I want to say is that there are different challenges between Oakland and Saint-Denis. They are similar. Our history, our management, our administration, there are differences, and also the concept for us to be able to ascertain them. Sometimes there could be false cognates between these translations, so we need to choose the right words, the appropriate, correct interpretations, and I wish the very best luck to the interpreters so that they can nail it. So I would now give the floor to a document that will help us go into the field that we're going to be addressing of today. So we're going to go into the documentary. Thank you very much.
Je suis là depuis 2 ans et j'arrive de Seine-Saint-Denis. Et tout de suite, quand on veut rencontrer des artistes, on nous dit les artistes sont plus à San Francisco, ils sont à Oakland.
To me, both Oakland and Saint-Denis are cities that are incredibly diverse. They have populations from all over the world. We came together to exchange stories. These two cities are going through very similar things, maybe at slightly different times. One very simple thing that obviously both places are going through is gentrification.
What it means to be an artist in the Bay Area is that in a way you're sometimes feeling you're an endangered species because the cost of living is so high.
Similar to Saint-Denis, there's a lot of industrial spaces, warehouse spaces.
Finalement, dans les deux cas, il y a un enjeu de maîtriser le foncier, maîtriser la durabilité du bâti.
On vient du 9-3, on vient d'Oakland. On a envie de le revendiquer et on a aussi envie de montrer une autre facette de cette ville qu'on vit au quotidien. Le point de départ, c'est une conviction que faire la ville est un acte culturel. On se rend compte qu'il y a énormément de solutions qui existent.
The moment we reflect with another city, it takes us out of our bubble and makes us think, oh, this is a global thing.
Okay, thank you for that. And I want to welcome the two mayors, Mayor Schaaf from the city of Oakland, Mayor Hanotin from Saint-Denis. And we're going to start with not a softball, but a question that I think many in the audience would wonder if they have not had a chance to visit one of these cities. And so I'll start with you, Mayor Hanotin. What is it about Saint-Denis that makes it distinctive and that makes it a good partner for a community like Oakland?
Bonsoir à tous.
Good evening, one and all, and good morning for those of you who are in California. Good morning. So before I reply, I would like to greet and welcome the commitment from the Consulate General in France in their partnership, and also the American and French partners that have made this exchange a reality, and also for the support to make our partnership a reality, and the French Institute and the Humanities Foundation as well. It goes without saying that we have had the the pleasure of seeing you before. All of these beautiful stories, of course, are always start with wonderful men and women who make all of this happen. And it was not, of course, no easy feat in any stretch of the imagination. It was no chance when we all met together, and has helped build our story. I would also like to warmly welcome to Mayor Schaaf for helping us build this partnership that I had not started. I was elected as a mayor in June of last year of 2020. What I did want to say was that I was just delighted to continue to follow up and to further develop this partnership. I didn't start off this partnership, but that notwithstanding, in the previous, my predecessor started and launched all of this willingness, and this is because we are going to be in charge of hosting the Olympic Games, and we have to start building everything in our own district, in our own département in Paris, along with Los Angeles 2028, and we're going to be, and also how we're going to be working with Paris 2024. This is a partnership among our different districts, and how we are going to be working together, collaborating together, especially with the Olympics looming in the future. So I have not had the pleasure of actually going to Oakland, not yet anyway. And I did go to, I did visit San Francisco, and it was beautiful. And I had the opportunity to have my son live there 7 years in California at the University of San Diego. So I actually have seen more of Southern California, more of the southern part of California. It is just such a pleasure. Well, my son is living in Colorado now, and the mayor is just, I just want to say, Mayor, it's your Pacific Coast is simply beautiful, and it's very different from the mountains in Colorado, the beautiful bay that you have here in the area. And when we're talking about Saint-Denis, just a few words. Saint-Denis is a historical city. It is a multi-sectorial city. It is a city in France where we had Gothic art, artists from the kings of France. It was the necropolis of the kings of France for the 18th century, for the exception of 3 kings, and if you will, and there were 3 kings. The kings, they always went to the Saint-Denis Basilica to go and visit. So we have a very important artistic weight in Saint-Denis and in France and throughout all of Europe. And it is paramount that it is thanks to Saint-Denis that we built this cathedral, this modern cathedral, and that you see. And this is part of our heritage. This is very important. Saint-Denis has always been a place of exchange, of sharing, it has always been a melting pot. We have always been linked to the different people, diversity, because this was a flow of revenue that allowed to come in. All of the major salesmen, all of the income, the influx that has been coming in to Saint-Denis. And it was through all of this and the partnership that this has allowed us to reinvent our city. Saint-Denis is a city that has been marked over the last few years through industrialization, through deindustrialization throughout the 20th century, and urban planning, building the city together, and has brought in different sectors. And what this allowed was that Paris exported, if you will, even if we didn't, from the capital, exported outward. And this was in the 20th century. So this also made it very difficult for Saint-Denis. Now we are seeing that we are at a crossroads, and we are at a time, a very special time that we are experiencing here with the pandemic. It was mentioned before that we had to re-ask ourselves, what is the place that our territory, our land is going to be playing? What is the role role they're going to be playing? How are we going to be inventing a new place for ourselves with new opportunities, new dynamism, and economically speaking, culturally speaking? We say that often. We feel that this cultural melange, this melting pot of cultures is one of our strengths. It is the very bedrock of what we are. It is a source of wealth, of prosperity that we have seen through time, through different cultures from all over the world, our differences, and it is a wealth for the future. And I hope that I will have the opportunity to be able to exchange in years to come with Mayor Schaaf. I would love to have this opportunity. And as I said, Saint-Denis was in 2022 was going to be a cultural capital for Europe in 2022. And this was a way for us to defend and to foster this. So thank you very much for listening.
Excellent. No, wonderful points. And Mayor Schaaf, as an Oakland native myself, having grown up on High Street and East 14th, he could be describing Oakland with many of those sort of features. But for you, what resonated for you in terms of the soul of Oakland mapping and matching so well with Saint-Denis for this collaboration?
Well, first, let me say what an honor it is to be with you, Mayor Mathieu, and Consul General. What an honor. This has been a difficult few days for America. This has been a difficult year for the world. So thank you for bringing a moment of joy and aspiration to me, because this year we have thought about what we share through the lens of loss and suffering from this global pandemic of COVID-19. And yet we know that art is the best medicine to heal so much of what ails our world, our democracy, and our communities. I am a very proud native of Oakland. Qu'est dommage que je ne comprends pas le français. I'm sorry, I don't understand French at all.
Unfortunately, I don't understand French.
I can speak. But it is a pleasure. Like many people in America, your language is like music to my ears. But I'm sorry, I do not speak it. Saint-Denis and Oakland share so much. And I always say that Oakland is like my lover. That Oakland has a secret sauce, and that sauce has 4 main ingredients: inclusive diversity. Like Saint-Denis, we are a city with more than 100 languages spoken on our streets. Nearly 1/3 of our residents were born outside of the United States. And diversity is not just a fact, inclusion is a choice. We are proud of that diversity. We celebrate it, not just tolerate it. Second is our long history of artists. And Oakland's artistic community, our cultural vibe, has a sharpness, a creativity, an edge to it that people often say is lacking in our fancier neighbor. Just like Saint-Denis has the fancy neighbor of Paris, we have the fancy neighbor of San Francisco. That brings me to my 3rd secret sauce ingredient. We have always been a working class town. We are the home of one of the busiest seaports in the world. We are proud that we get our hands dirty. We are workers, and that gives the soul of our city a gritty authenticity, a scrappiness, a resilience that you don't find in you know, fancier neighborhoods. And then last, we have always been a city that fights for social justice. Many movements like the Black Panthers were born in Oakland. And that fight for racial justice, for economic justice, has never been greater than it is today. And our artists are on the front line of that fight. I believe that we share so much because our cities have a similar culture and history, and we see the similarities as we fight against gentrification and displacement, but we are clear in our values that our artists and that culture itself is our priority and is a driving force for everything that we want for our cities. So thank you for having me here today, Mayor.
Mayor Schaaf, let me do a quick follow-up, and then for Mayor Hanotin, I want to ask you the same question. What is the role of local government, of cities, right? With so many global forces, what is the role of city government in terms of creating and protecting space and place for artists to remain, you know, viable, available, to have resources to continue to contribute to the life of the city? What can city government do?
I will talk about three things. We own property, we are regulators, and we are the pulse and voice of community value. As property owners, we can physically use property that we own to create affordable spaces for performance, for artists to live and to work. And what excites me the most in Oakland is we are recognizing that it's not just our ownership of buildings. We own the roads, the parks, the forests, and that we are starting to unlock the public space. Because this space is not, you know, a road is not just a way for your car to get to work. In Oakland, we've begun allowing communities to paint on our roads. We have murals literally on the road in the intersection that cars drive over. We're recognizing that our public spaces are opportunities for expression and the building of community and the celebration of culture. And so to really unlock the great potential of the physical environment that we control as government is an untapped opportunity. But I think Saint-Denis and Oakland are leading the way in recognizing those potentials. Second,
yes.
as regulators, we have to use our power of regulation to advance and prioritize the arts. In Oakland, we are starting to write zoning codes that in recognized cultural districts actually require a ground floor cultural use in new buildings. That's using our zoning codes. And for example, in California, we recently legalized recreational marijuana. That created a big real estate boom to buy up industrial properties, many of which have been used by artists to create sculpture and to create live workspace. We passed a regulatory law to prevent the marijuana cultivation from displacing our live work community. So those are some examples of things that we've done and things that we will continue to do, in addition to just lifting up the value of the arts through our role as the spokespeople for our communities.
Excellent. And to you, Mayor Hanotin, what can city government, local government, in the case of Saint-Denis, do to protect space, create new spaces for artists to thrive in the community?
La question est, en fait, je pense qu'il
Your
faut
question, rather, I think that we need to take it in an overall sense. What you were saying in terms of the role, the place of culture, and the impact that it would have on society. So I think what is the role, the place of artists? It's not an exclusive topic because we welcome a lot of artists and so that they impact with all of their artistic potential. It's kind of like a hybridization in terms of the needs of the artists and how they can irradiate all of that positive artistic work. Now, all of the different topics that we are thinking, there's some common ones, of course, along with Libby Schaaf has just put forward, and just the traditional power that a city usually has. And that's the thing, we have to have the will to do it, that you have to have the willingness to do so. That's the very first one. We have this desire in the outskirts, in our area. We welcome artists and who know our city and who know who know exactly these individuals, and also the Saint-Denis Canal, who know that area in La Briche and 6B as well. So what I want to do is we want to create a world, not as it is currently, unfortunately, like an artistic cloister, if you will. And what we could do is create synergies, artistic synergies. We can have exchanges, meetings, gatherings together, and it would be an amazing place for our heritage so that we can take a better gauge and we can look at all of this. We have our Atelier Christophe, that these artistic workshops that could be part of this whole, and it shows the canal, the Stade of France, and to focus and foster an ideology of welcoming and helping the artists set up. That's part of the work. Something else now that we are working on that are worthwhile. I think that this has to do with everything related to DIY and how this is mutating and also gentrification. But I'm not only talking about the negative aspects of gentrification. I'm also talking about our this unbalanced and how unbalanced it is and how it's going to be ongoing over the long term. We need to make sure that there is balance and that there is harmony, and that we have also at least 52% of social housing or even more, and even higher percentages for these social housing for the future for these individuals. And I'm talking about 3,000 or 4,000 people who are living in abject poverty, who need this assistance. And we're talking about those individuals who are living below the threshold of society. And so we need to have, to make so that our society works well. We need to fight together. I think you've already said this as well. We have to fight this idea of separatism that exists, but it is imperative to build a local community as a community to fight social separatism throughout the entire metropolitan area. And also there are very specialized areas for welcoming, for different specific tasks. So this is a political project, I think, that needs to be balanced, how it's going to be coming to fruition, and also what is the place and the role of culture. I talked about DIY, and I talked about the fact that this is an area that is moving, that it is evolving. We need to invent, we need to put forward amazing projects, and we also need to focus and hone in on these individuals. So this is what I wanted to say, that this is similar to what Mayor Schaaf said. What is the role of art? what beyond artists, what is the role of art in public spaces? And I think that this would be a determining factor. It is paramount. We need to show our area that is making headway. We're not only going to be just building, building and making buildings out of cement. That's not it. No, or just housing and housing and housing. No, that's it. But we also need other things that are going to bring us together as a group, as a society, and to be able to move forward together. So we are thinking about these areas in the city, in the southern part of the area that I talked about, and in different areas of Saint-Denis. And it would be a pleasure for you to come and see us and to welcome all of you. We are going to be building an area that goes from Paris to the Stade de France to foster culture and to also make sure that everything is up and running for the Olympic Games. We're trying to build a cultural Olympiad, and we are doing an amazing work in this regard. And you're able to see this also on internet. You're able to go and look at all of this. It's called Mur MUR 93, and you can say how we are looking and the different projects that we are going through. So I think that what we need to do is manage to think about this question, this specific issue about ephemeral art in cities. Ephemeral. It's also divine. It's also what makes us move, take action. MUR 93, it's the compilation of artists that built this gargantuan wall with different artists. So, and this is, we have to think about all of this. How, when this is completed, are we going to, what are we going to be doing this? It is fostering diversity. Remember again, because this is ephemeral, it has a very specific time frame. There will be coming an end. And I do think that in public spaces, we have to have this live art that are ephemeral. And we also need to ask about what are the exchanges that we couldn't even fathom now. We're going to be working on working together. Maybe we can take stock of this through videos and pictures and photographs or whatnot, and we can bring together all of these artistic gatherings that are just so interesting. So instead, we are going to be working an area for artists in cities and art, the role that art plays specifically in public spaces. As I also stated, we also need to foster our cultural heritage, which is also very strong. We need to take actions as well. We need to rake actions. We need to leverage our daily lives day in, day out, because our life, our city is marginalized, and our city does need help. And we want to make sure that there is this does come to fruition, and we have to have a very strong vision with all of these cultural endeavors. We have to have our daily pragmatism. There are also very important security, safety, our history. We need to strike this balance that is going to be ongoing forward.
And I wonder, Mayor Schaaf, I mean, Oakland is a complicated city. It's like, The Wire could not have done better in Oakland than it did in Baltimore, or it could have easily. How do you model this, though, in terms of your team and the dynamics in the city? And you reference, importantly, the history of social justice movements in Oakland and the working class sort of identity that it has. But gentrification does put pressure on that. And so can you give us a couple of examples, or just get a little bit into that for us in terms of modeling those best practices of inclusivity, but also being able to foreground the need to deal with social justice and the questions of poverty that Mayor Hanotin is raising?
Well, I want to first give credit to my amazing director of cultural arts, who's on the line, Roberto Bedoya, who led our city in a strategic cultural plan, something our city had not done for more than 30 years, a city of artists, but with no cultural plan. And Roberto very wisely listened to the voices of the community and put this forward as the theme, the goal of our cultural plan, that culture is the frame, equity is the driving force, and belonging is our goal. And the arts are the most powerful tool we have to make people feel seen and celebrated. The arts are the most powerful tool we have to advance social justice, to illustrate it, to illustrate the better world that we are fighting for. This summer, America went through a long overdue racial reckoning with the state-sponsored murder of George Floyd at the hands of a city police department. And cities across America, but with Oakland leading the way, erupted into civil unrest. And in Oakland, that immediately came into civil expression. Artists, and that's not just professional artists, because in Oakland, I think we all see ourselves as artists, descended on our downtown. Merchants had put boards over the windows because they were afraid of vandalism and looting. Well, our artists turned those boards into canvases. Our downtown went from a place of anger and despair to vision and expression and beauty and power. That is what allowing artists to co-govern, to be at the seat of decision-making, to enable them through government support, not suppress them. That is what we as leaders have the opportunity to do, because art is not just around cultural pride, it is about needed revolution. I cannot hear you, Joaquin. I think you are muted.
There we go. Thank you. Do ideas come from the arts that you can apply politically to bring progress? What's the dynamic? It's an expression, but does it also make the dialogue better in terms of just the politics of a place?
It does, because artists are often the first ones that illustrate the new world for us. Whether that is, through the putting of a flower at the end of the barrel of a rifle. We've all seen that picture, and it advanced our thinking because an artist gave us that image. And when I think about the images that are throughout our downtown, these are images of sorrow and anger, but they're also images that lift up, the beauty of a Breonna Taylor, that show angels and what true cultural empowerment look like. So artists are the ones that dream and show us the picture of a more just future.
Yeah, Mayor Hanotin, I would love for you to take a shot at this question, but let me rephrase it a little. Racial equity is a critical issue around the world, and it's in the bloodstream of Oakland. It's also in the bloodstream in Saint-Denis because of the diversity. And having spent many a day in Saint-Denis, just with people and with artists and journalists, it's got incredible strength, but it has those challenges. So when you think about the arts and the question of racial justice and Black Lives Matters, how do you reflect on that, and how do you lead in those issues with your city administration?
Écoutez, d'abord, je pense qu'il faut faire.
First of all, I feel that we really need to be very careful when we compare things too quickly, too hastily. I am not those who put everything equal between the situation that is in the United States and what is happening here in France. It's not the same. Or the situation dealing with racism. And I cannot deny that there are racism problems in France. I would never deny that. I think that every single country has a multicultural way, a situation. There are similarities, but we were not built the very same way. We don't have, all of us are not without fault in our history, and we do not have the exact same issues. I think that we need to really take on board these topics without providing very simple questions, which I think that we could fall into a trap if we do so. The solutions and what we are striving to do, and respecting all individuals and trying to foster philosophy, secularism, and secularism is very important, and as we have seen with different, we have seen with Aristide Briand, and how that has had an impact and has allowed all people with all differences to live together, to give together. It's not once against the other, but rather it is a community that is not better than any other. But when we live in a melting pot, a country where there's a melting pot, there is a common pact with our differences that we need to live together. I am not one who believes nor who says that at the end of the day, France is right in how it was built and in the French model, and the Anglo-Saxon of community is working a lot better or not. I think that I would invite all of us, I urge all of us multilaterally to just take a look to see. I don't think that there is one single model that works just perfectly well for the entire world, worldwide. So I think that it is a question. We need to be humble enough to realize that we need to, this could be like maybe a shortcut to look at this worldwide and to have very positive exchanges, cultural exchanges like we're having today. And also we have it, and also this incites us, this triggers a quest, to look inside that is quite legitimate. And more often than not, sometimes we reject it. We only look inside of ourselves. We look inward only. And as you see in the United States, you are very diverse. You have numerous states, and I think you only have 6 more days left of this current administration. And right? Am I right or not? And so we're crossing our fingers for you, okay? We're crossing our fingers for you. So as far as I see it, that this is like the trap or the danger that we have in front of us. How are we going to be able to build tasks to have the necessary lucidity, to clarity, to allow people, to endow people with the power, empower them to take the lead and to find and seek out solutions for their own well-being in these urban areas, these urban spaces. At the end of the day, we always try to stick solution that we imagined, that we concocted, that may not really go with the reality. It may not work. And so we have to do, I remember my predecessor here at in the city as the mayor, and he told me that how you need to look at this real world carefully. And you also need to find different ways to find a solution with our philosophy, with the end goal that we need to achieve. And day in, day out, we need to find the way for this to work and to be up and running. At the end of the day, we need to live in a world without borders, without anything. That may be the very best way for us to be able to go into a world that the previous world. So we're trying to make some headway in this regard. We need to work together among our different communities, the interrelationships between our different communities, and in Saint-Denis specifically, there isn't any specific community organization that is spearheading this, but what we need to do is stress the positive points. And I am about to appoint an assistant to focus multicultural, a deputy to focus on multicultural multicultural legacy in my office. And we're going to be working together. We're going to be fostering this multicultural heritage, looking at the positive, that there is a positive, and also to shed light and to be an example and to foster the very best of every single culture, and to make sure that the success arises, emerges individually speaking as well, because we're thinking of this driving force, this engine, and how it's going to be working, and based on that, we are going to see how we're going to be making headway step by step. If we don't do it, step by step, that's already good. We're going to be starting. It's important is to start, even if it's step by step.
Excellent, excellent. And just a little bit of housekeeping. I think we're losing the mayors at the top of the hour, but we will leave the session open for questions or just more discussion. Mayor Schaaf, a couple of things from what we just heard on the Saint-Denis side that I want to have you reflect on. This commitment, right, to being humble and learning and applying those lessons. We already had many challenges in Oakland, of course, and many things to celebrate. But the pandemic added, just raised the temperature and put that much more pressure. What have you been able to do with your administration and with your partners in the city to try to not protect, because we need vaccines and all of that, but to try to insulate to some degree the creative community that was already challenged, but also is such a critical resource? What's been your response?
We all talk about the value of art, of expression, and certainly in a moment like this, artists are the one that help us make sense of our pain. But we cannot enjoy, nor do we deserve to enjoy that healing power of artistic expression if we do not create safe, affordable places for artists to live and do their work. Now, this was a priority of mine from the moment I got elected as mayor. 6 years ago, I immediately created a working group to develop a plan to protect the living and working spaces of Oakland artists. And that was before the pandemic. And so in this moment, it's not just about lifting up rather than suppressing artistic expression, but it's about protecting the very people that create the art. And so when we got federal aid, when we went out to our community to raise private funds to just deliver relief to people in this moment of crisis, we specifically carved out and targeted artists. So we did not just give out rent relief to people who had trouble, or we passed an eviction moratorium, not just for tenants, but we actually had specific aid for our artist community. And that is our job. It's to not just protect the most vulnerable, but to recognize that there is an added value, an added importance to the civic soul, to have artists not just express their talent, but to be able to survive, to live, to work safely. And I want to compliment Europe. Europe and France does a much better job than the United States in creating and protecting what you call social housing, what we call affordable housing. We have much to learn from Europe, and I aspire to have that level of housing security, because the housing crisis in Oakland, in the Bay Area, in California, and honestly, in all our West Coast cities is killing our economy and our soul. It is displacing our most vulnerable. It is displacing our most creative, and we cannot afford to lose. And it is our obligation to address that crisis. And Europe has done a much better job than America.
Well, I think you have both done a really nice job of being very specific about the work you're doing as the leaders of these two cities, in partnership, of course, with all these stakeholders. But that learning, that exchange feels like it's a very powerful resource that we have, right? And so we have 2 minutes to close. I want to give Mayor Hanotin a chance to say 1 minute in closing what you hope for the future of this partnership. And then Mayor Schaaf will give you the same opportunity before we sign you guys off and continue the dialogue. To you, Mayor Hanotin.
Merci beaucoup. C'était
Thank you very much. It was a very rich dialogue, and the starting point was our collaboration project. I think that we will have many opportunities. Before we even talk about different challenges, I think that we can grapple with all of this together. And I think that what we need to do is build an even stronger bridge than we have today. There were beginnings, but it's more theoretical in nature. And we can even think of maybe an exchange of residences for artists or housing for artists, for example, that they can do exchanges, different actions that we can take, even with children also, to have a cultural exchange for children, and to foster this common culture of both of our cities, at least until 2028. We can build, for example, this bridge between both Olympiads, for example, so that these children are going to be able to share with all of these exchanges, these visits, and we can create a common culture. And I think that this would be wonderful, which could link up our partnership, and it could link it up to something else that I didn't really talk about, but I believe artistic and cultural education in our schools. That's something that I really keep in my heart, very strong in my heart. And that's something that we are going to be developing. And I think that this could be the very groundwork for an innovative partnership, an innovative one. And I hope that very soon, Madam Mayor, I would ask her if she would like to be part our sponsor committee, so that you can be part of Saint-Denis, so that it can be a European city of culture, to help us with our projects that are going to be started in a bit. I think they're going to be launching this project, wonderful projects that we're going to be working, for example, in our new basilica that we're working, the different we are working on rebuilding it, fixing it, refurbishing our basilica. And I think that this is just, there's a lot of different projects that will help us take a look into the past, our history, the technical aspects of the past, and also of the future. And at that, it would be just, I would be so delighted for you to join us as well when all of this pandemic is finished, so that we can schedule a meeting together live in real life, as we say, so that we can be twin cities together. We could be sister cities, and we could build this together. It would be a wonderful pleasure for us to welcome you here as well. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, Mayor Schaaf, you got an invitation. Hopes for this project. We have more specifics on the table here.
Oh, Mayor Mathieu, I can't even say Mathieu Hanotin. In English, we'd say Mathieu Hanotin. I accept your gracious invitation. Oakland would be thrilled to be part of your cultural Olympic village. And this is just the beginning of our connection and collaboration. We talked about the role of arts in fighting racism. Racism begins with othering, considering yourself apart from another group of people. The antidote, the cure of that is belonging, connection. And there's no better example than our cities, our arts communities being connected. It reminds us that we are all part of one human family. with the same aspirations and visions for a beautiful, just future. So I look forward to our ongoing collaboration to show the world not just the incredible artistic talent that lives and works in each of our cities, but that we as members of this global community have much more in common than not, and that we can show the world a vision, an aspirational vision of a beautiful future. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for having me as part of this. I love the work that has happened, and I am looking forward to the work ahead.
Well, you guys
Merci.
have both done a great job. We thank you very much for participating. We look forward to more. We have several people who want to know how to help. So we'll in our discussion, maybe open some channels up so people can support, invest, and participate. But to both of you, we really appreciate all of your time and energy. And to our rest of our audience, please hang in there, and we'll get a few more folks turned on to the Zoom who can help answer some of the questions that have been in there. But thank you to the mayors and their teams. Juliette is joining me now, Julie Fry, the CEO of California Humanities. And maybe we'll have you guys both introduce yourselves quickly, so then we'll start to just kind of go through some of the discussion questions. Juliette.
Oui, bonjour, un grand merci.
Well, first of all, thank you. But my name is Juliette Donadieu. I am the cultural attaché for the French Embassy in the United States. I live in San Francisco about 4 years. And it would be a pleasure for me to answer any of your questions. And we are here with Julie to just take stock of the exchanges that just happened between both of these mayors. And I know that many of you, maybe if you would like to join and be part of this project and also different collaboration opportunities together.
Great. And Julie?
Hi, thank you everybody for being here. I'm Julie Fry. I'm President and CEO of California Humanities, a proud partner of the Oakland Saint-Denis Cooperation Project. Joaquin, it's been great to have you as part of this as a former California Humanities board member. We are a almost 45-year-old nonprofit that serves all of the state of California in terms of bringing people together to understand cultures, stories, histories, amplify voices. I both live and work in Oakland, and so this project has been a part of both my professional and personal lives. It's I'm really proud to hear this exchange between the two mayors of our cities. It's very encouraging to see so much energy and enthusiasm at the highest leadership level in our cities to embrace the project.
Great. And to anyone who's in the panel, feel free to drop something in the chat or to do something in the Q&A. And I apologize, I could not get the questions in while we had the mayors, but we might be able to answer some of these just from our working knowledge. We'll go backwards. Shannon McDonald had a question. As artists, if we have projects we would like to propose, how do we do this? Do we have that? Is that established? Is there a way to sort of submit something or a concept? Juliette, I'll let you take that first.
I could actually answer. So I think that there are different opportunities. We had the mayor of, I think they talked about an exchange of different residences so that Saint-Denis artists can come here to the San Francisco Bay Area and Oakland. And I am here at the Via San Francisco Cultural Association. We have different residential projects and opportunities. And we've also looked at different formats or even different artistic exhibits with different contact, which was created just recently over the last few months through exhibits. The very best way is to contact us via San Francisco and California Humanities to contact us so that we can start talking together about it.
Great. And maybe we can put in the chat the appropriate URLs or emails if those exist for this. Julie, do you want anything that from the California Humanities side?
I think I want to repeat something that Juliette often says, which is that we really want to expand the conversation. We want to expand the conversation within our region, within California, and across the country and across Europe as well. And so we're continuing to find ways to bring together the artists in both of our cities, to do some public exhibitions, to continue to do these conversations. And we're really open to ideas that you might have. So I echo Juliette, please get a hold of us.
Great. And I'll go to, I believe, Maren Conrad's note here to both mayors. And again, apologies, we didn't get this in while we had them online. I'm a female street artist, muralist, and design MFA fellow at UC Davis, researching creative placemaking's potential to help the equity of foot traffic in alleyways and safety for women, children, and LGBTQ residents in urban areas. Will there be opportunities, a call to artists, which is what we're talking about, or an appropriate channel to engage in Saint-Denis Cultural Olympiad through ephemeral art installations? Maybe Juliette?
Effectivement,
Indeed. I think the mayor, Mr. Hanotin, actually mentioned that this is something that it's a perspective that we have with Saint-Denis, along with the organizing committee of the Olympics. And this is something that we could actually look at different projects and different programs. I think that this was also mentioned at UC Davis, the work that we did with different universities here to try to look at maybe possibly different events, different conferences, different workshops, which would be online for the time being, but we also hope physically present later on. But UC Davis is one of our partners, UC Berkeley as well as one of our partners. And what we want to do is we want to continue to organize conferences over the next few months to continue, along with what Julie was saying, to further expand and to invite a different perspective and different voices to part of this debate.
Excellent. Yes, thank you for that, Maren. Chloe Veltman's question is, there's a plan afoot in California for the state to employ artists in a way similar to how artists were given jobs during the New Deal years, the WPA. My understanding, if the proposed legislation passes, is that they will initially be deployed to create messaging around public health issues. How effective will this plan be, do you think, both of you, for the artists and the public? And what needs to happen to make this idea, if it comes, as effective as it can be? Julie, can I ask you to take that one?
Chloe, that's a great question, and I think one that we all need to explore and work with the California Arts Council and California arts advocates as well to really figure out the best way to deploy those resources. I would hope that, in speaking to what Mayor Schaaf was saying about the importance of artists and helping to express both the pain, but also, in my view, the hope and the joy of what it means to be alive in this odd and troubling moment, I think is going to be really important as part of that. I know certainly in the work that we do, we really want to try to reach the far corners of the state. And so that will be, if there's a way for us to be involved, that is going to be what we'll really focus on, is getting into to rural communities and really every corner of California.
Great. And I would just remark on Mayor Schaaf pointing out that in Europe, there's a very different structure for funding the arts and public broadcasting, and that has a serious positive impact in terms of folks being able to do that. So it would be very compelling to see something like that potentially happen. And I can't stress enough, the California Humanities is an incredible resource just to be familiar with what they're funding, and you'll see great diversity in terms of the projects that are recognized and how they engage communities. I'm not seeing any other questions or comments in the chat, so I want to give folks a couple minutes to weigh in before we wrap up. Juliette, let me ask you one more question though, because it's such an interesting dynamic, right? The Paris Saint-Denis is very similar to San Francisco and Oakland, although they're very different in many ways, of course. But that energy that can come from a community like Oakland or Saint-Denis, you won't always find it in the larger, more wealthy neighbors. So just what have you learned in terms of your time in this partnership from Oakland's relationship to San Francisco that maybe reflects Saint-Denis' relationship to Paris?
sur la question, je vais juste me permettre de rebondir sur
question. I just want to go back to Julie just talked about in terms of Chloe's question, in terms of structuring, financing, public accountability. Both mayors said that they are these political roles, and what we were able to see in our cooperation project, we were able to see that we needed to accept there were two models. There were two models that may not resemble each other, or they have a different public and financial structures are different, and compared to what's happening here in the United States, what we were able to see is how they are both created, the public and private, and the public and the private do come together. We looked at different land issues, economic, legal issues when we linked up Oakland and Saint-Denis, and that is exactly what we are trying to hone in on in our cooperation program. This relationship at the local communities that have been developed, and how can we expand this even more in other areas. And I would like to recall the question that we are seeing the similarities in our different regions and the different areas where we live in. I think that there are different situations that we were able to see is that there are very local characteristics, specificities. We need to understand the local communities, and we also need to understand the international dynamics that can help us to move forward. And this is something that we were able to see in terms of racism and inequality, in terms of racism, different fears that we have. But the reality, when we see this day in, day out, the impacts and the facts of this are very, very similar. So we need to learn one from one another and try to come up with something innovative and something new. I don't know if I really answered your question, Joaquin. I don't know if I actually answered your question.
It was that was a better answer. You answered a better question than I asked. How about that? But I will just highlight, there's just incredible learnings here. And it's a real, it's a unique partnership. And as somebody who grew up in Oakland, when I got off and walked through the streets of Saint-Denis, I got goosebumps because there were so many things that recalled for me what makes Oakland, Oakland. So any closing notes, Julie, before we let folks go? And then Juliette, some closing thoughts from you, but Julie, you want to go first?
Thanks, Joaquin, and thanks, Juliette, for being such a marvelous partner in this work. I just wanted to thank everybody for your interest in this, for being part of this. Let's continue to expand and grow the conversation. Let's find ways of doing what the mayors said they wanted to do, which is make us sister cities, make us twins. Let's all find some projects to do together. We really welcome your energy and interest in that. And thanks for being here.
Juliette, closing thought?
I would say the same, as I would like to invite you to join us to continue to exchange a very big thank you, because at the end of the day, this is a collective project, and you see the different faces here from San Francisco, via San Francisco and California Humanities. We, among with our different partners, I would like to say the both cities here mentioned them, the city of Oakland and the city of Saint-Denis, a very big, warm welcome. They always said yes right from the beginning when we started, and this started at the end of 2018. So a really big thank you for this amazing trip, and this is just the beginning. I would also like to thank the Institut Français for their support, and the French American Cultural Society for everything that they made us allowed us to do today. So a very big, warm thank you, and more to come.
Excellent. Well, thanks to everybody. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Really appreciate your attendance. And make sure check out Stéphane Simon is putting an offer out there for folks also with the website. So don't know Stéphane, but thank you for sharing that. And we'll see you next time. We'll keep you posted as this continues to evolve.